Hello, my name is Jack Blade. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a tips and tricks video that shows off the smart factory concept. And for those who have seen the video originally released by TotalXclipse, he really showed it off well. And in my opinion, there is no harm in trying to get more eyes on it because it's a really fascinating concept. So let's get into this. Let's start just talking about what is the concept of the smart factory and how does it differ from your normal average satisfactory factory, and why do we call it smart? In satisfactory, there is no logic circuits. Almost. There are two, and one of them is the smart splitter and the other is the programmable splitter. There is like a 0.5 to that as well, which is the priority power switch. This one. That is more, as far as I'm concerned, rather than being like a smart device, as in it's automatic, autonomous, and adapts to the circumstance. Rather than that, it is something that allows me to remotely control parts of my factory. It's more like that's more how I would classify that. And then I know that some people talk about how that could be looked at as a logic device because it is like automatically reacting to power deficits. That's why I'm putting it like as a 0.5. And today we will be looking at specifically the smart splitter and how we can use that to create a scalable, automatically adapting, I should say, smelting facility. And then you can take this however far you want. I just want to show the concept and try to help educate so that you can do this, do something really fun with this yourself. And I would love to see your concepts of this. If you have them, come over to my Discord and show what you got that or tell me how you made your smart factory work. Or even better, if you're trying to figure out your smart factory and have problems, come on over and we can jump on a Discord call and I can help you. And so can probably anyone else in the server. So, what do we do to make this a smart thing? What is the difference between a normal factory and this? We use smart splitters here as the manifold instead of normal splitters, and we put the machine as the main circuit to go into for the smart splitter, and the going forwards, like moving to the next machine, and then so on and so forth. This guarantees that this machine will be full before the next one starts, and so on and so forth. That means that when we get to the end, it's like the only reason why this one is running at 100% is because it is getting all the materials it needs. So what does that mean for the rest of the material? And how does that make it different, is what I should say. Basically, when you make a smart factory, rather than making a determination on how much you need for your factory, like let's say that you're making a factory where you need 300 iron ingots, so you put in 10 smelters that does 30 each. That way you get the 300 you need, and then that's done, right? That's a pretty even number, right? The problem is that then you constantly have to work with constant numbers, and you have it takes a lot of planning and stuff to make your factories. By using a smart factory, you can kind of skip that step, because what you have instead is an upper limit, and anything within that scope, that is what you can do with that factory. So, and then if you add on modularity to that factory, you will automatically also have the ability to scale up that upper limit. And in this case, what I've done, as a concept, I made this would be an early game smart factory that makes iron ingots, and in here we make a normal, the normal recipe and everything, right? But the entire concept is in the input. So this factory can deal with up to 4 times 270, like Mark III belts, which means that it can like output a total and process a total of 1080 iron ore. I am not inputting 1080 ore, like iron ore. I'm not. Like, however, because of this setup, it basically takes all the ore that I'm inputting and then forcing it further and further left, filling up this belt, and when that belt is full, it fills up the second belt, and when that belt is full, it fills up the third belt, right? So, like, rather than being a load balancer, it's a like belt priority system that prioritizes from left to right in this case. This is probably like horrendous to people who are good at like load balancing and stuff like that. It probably looks absolutely horrific. This is not what this video is about. And I basically just like experimented around until I got something to do what I wanted it to do. There's probably way better ways of doing this. If you want to copy this, like go right ahead. It is probably working the way it should. I've been running it for an hour to see what happened, and so far it hasn't like stopped or like messed up in any way. And all of the belts, as you can see, are running without stopping, which means that it is using 100% capacity of these 4 Mark III miners. And that's what I wanted to show you later, but let's focus on this first. It focuses everything on the left belt, which is this set of smelters. And then when that is full, which it is, if we look at the iron coming out of here, those are full belts and nothing is backing up in here. You can see that there's no machines being backed up. This is just doing perfectly fine because instead of like overflowing this belt and backing it up, it just moves all the surplus over to the next belt. So from there, we move to the second belt, and then that goes over here to the second section, which is also then full, as you can see, and nothing is being backed up, nothing is stopping, nothing is slowing down, and it goes over, and it's being sunk here so that we can have like a constantly running factory. And then in the what's left over from that, essentially, because you can see here that there's nothing from this part moving over here. It is only moving over, like, it's only moving from this side over here. That is because of how I made this, like, belt priority system. Like, these two are already full. They are not going to back up. There's not going to be a problem. However, now I need to focus on filling like the next set of belts, so to speak. So like this is one priority system that is then hooked into a different priority system. Are these priority systems well done? Probably not, but they work. Like it's that meme, you know, like it's a piece of shit, but it works. And here I basically make sure that everything from these two belts, they move over here first and foremost, and then like in this case it takes priority over here for this section. And here's the fun part: when it runs out of iron to go for the next machine, it just doesn't use that machine. In a normal splitter, this would force split down and try to use the remaining machines. In this case it won't, because you don't have the ore input to utilize that capacity, so it just doesn't. If it looks weird with the power, that's because I have, like, this is a god mode world that I can show this stuff on. So if you look in here, like, it's just balanced at using this amount. Like, it goes between 3 and 4 constantly. It's not gonna go higher. So in the end, like, if you then input more iron, this is going to go up, right? So I'm gonna show this, and this is the fun part. I'm gonna show this by increasing the iron input to the system. So we have 240, 240, and then we have 120, 120. This factory can take a maximum amount of 1080. So if I increase this to also do 240, which means that I put in 2 of these, and I increase the rate at which the ore comes out, what we will see is that the factory actually adapts on the fly with no input. Now, I'm gonna get to that in a more detailed manner later. And something to keep in mind: the intention for one of these factories to really work out well is to use tractors, trucks, trains, and drones. Okay, so it's not meant to be used with the like with normal belts. It's not meant to be used like that. You want to have a truck station or something out here that just takes all the ore that comes in and just like feeds that into like a belt priority system, and then it does its thing, right? Because that makes it so that if you need more iron, you don't have to belt it. You just put up another like truck station and they drive over with more resources, or a train moves in with more resources, or however you want to do it. But yeah, so let's look now. You can see we are getting a lot more iron in, and this is now filling up. As you can see, it's like going up faster than it is going down. So I'm gonna cut to when we see how it's balanced out using all the new resources that we're moving in. All right, so we are back. And now if we look at this, I've been messing around a little bit, so it's not necessarily full up or anything right now, but it should end up going to 100, 100, 100. Because right now we're putting in, what was it? Yeah, this is what we should be using. We're putting in 840 iron ore divided by 270 because that's the belt speed. And we get 3.11, which means that we should be filling 3 belts and then 11% of the next belt, which means that we should be filling up here as well and start using this one. And as you can see, it's starting to fill up, which means that over here, and you will also notice something different, I had to upgrade this a little bit because I noticed that I had missed a few details, and once again we are turning this into even more of a monstrosity. Basically, I have now made it so that we have a proper, like, I need to sit down and properly experiment with what, like, if you're merging 2 belts and one of them overflows, or both of them overflows, there's a priority for which one flows and which one does not, apparently, which has like messed up the whole priority system, and means that like sometimes when I place this down, for example, it prioritizes the overflow, like with the any over here, right? But when it hits this one, this sometimes just keeps flowing, and this one is just completely stopped. So this one automatically overflows. So like you have to compensate for all those kinds of things, which is why I can't just tell you like, yeah, this is how you build one of these. You kind of have to experiment and make one that just works for you, and for your system and the amount of belts and belt speeds and everything you have. I like right now it's like if this gets overflowed, which might happen, it goes over here and it merges over here because that's not a full belt. That's 240 out of 270. There's 30 space, like there's space for 30 more, which means that like if I maxed out 270 on all the machines, which I'm going to do to show you like what partly to test this, but partly to see, like I want to see this. It's a bit of an experimentation, but partly that, but I also want to show you that like if I just up the scale or up the resources, the system adapts. So like we saw over there, like in barring that I had made mistakes in building this, it literally just adapted, started using all of this, and then once it had fixed that, it started moving over here and using this belt and starting up these machines. Meaning that we get 1, 2, 3 full belts once that's leveled out again. And then I'm syncing that for now, but that could be going into a different train line that moves over to a smart factory that makes iron plates or iron rods and whatever else that you want in the rest of your world. Which means that you can like spend a lot of time setting up a massive iron processing facility or like a raw ore processing facility in general and just move that out. And so at the end of the video, we will turn this up to 100% capacity, and we will see what happens if my priority system works or if I need to work on my skills here a little bit more. But first, I want to show you like a scaled up concept, because this one has a max capacity of 1080 in and 1080 out. So I want to show you what's behind this wall. So let me just open that up, and I will show you exactly what the big boy thing will look like. Here we go. This is the big boy version of what we saw before. This is the final end game level smart factory that you can make, specifically for ore processing. You can make smart factories for other things, remember that. I'm just showing you with the most efficient recipes out there, what can you make. Let's quickly just go through how this one works. Okay, and why it is sectioned out the way it is, because that is the important part when you're making these factories. So, the recipe it uses, we're once again processing iron. It's iron ore, 35 iron ore, 20 water, and 65 out. And here's the thing. What makes me put them the way that I have? There's 12 refineries in a line, and then there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, meaning that there are 72 refineries here. 72 refineries that can each output 65 ingots per minute. The reason why they are sectioned the way they are, because the lowest capacity variable we have to work with is the out belts. If we use Mark V belts that has a speed of 780, that is perfectly matched for 12 refiners to output exactly 65 ingots. Meanwhile, in the input, the water, like like what can one Mark II pipe do? If we account for the sloshing and like the floating numbers, the bugginess with the pipes, you can take about 27 refiners in one water line. And you can take something like 24 in the input, I think. Yeah, something like that. I think 22 point something is the input limit. And that means that for me to output, if I put in 22 point whatever it is, I can actually check that out. Let's 780 divided by 35, 22.28. There we go. If we take that number and I apply, like we put in 23 in a line, I would have to split the output at some point. I would probably have to go down the half and split that and make 2 output lines per line of 23 refiners. So that's why I have chosen to go with 12 in each line. Otherwise, we do the same thing here. We have this, the overflow goes forward, and the primary input or primary direction is towards the refinery. So when that one fills up, it goes to this one and this one and this one and this one. Now I haven't set up the priority system over here because that would be a behemoth and I don't really actually have time to make it. But it's basically like just a bigger, uglier version of what we have running over there. So over here, we have, instead of having a factory that can take 1080 ore in and output 1080 ore, instead of that, what we have now is 72 times 65 that can output 4,680 iron ingots. And it does that by using 2,520 iron ore. And the best way to just feed this into the belt priority system is use these, right? So I have set up mock train stations here, right? And this is the mock train station called Iron Ore In, where I would just like have a bunch, like this is from one collection place, this is from a second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth collection place, meaning that I can take in a ton of iron, just put all of that into one massive belt priority system, right? That prioritizes, like if you want to go right to left or left to right, doesn't really matter. What is important when you make the priority system is that you don't ever have more than one overflow on this Like you can do this, but you can't put this also as overflow. Then you need to like place another splitter, like because you don't want to load balance. You don't want to split the line. You want to divert overflow. And if you divert an overflow in two directions, you will have to merge that at some point before it. Yeah, it's just trust me. It's easier if you just have one smart splitter for per overflow diversion. All right, and the diversion should always be to the right or to the left, depending on if you're like belt priority on the left side or belt priority on the right side. So that's something to keep in mind. Don't try to like make it in a layer like back to front. It's just gonna mess with you. Start on the left and build like if that's the priority belt, make that belt first. Plug in the second belt, and how do you prioritize towards the left, and so on and so forth. And what you do is just then plug in belt number 1 over there, and then belt number 2 over there, like over there, over there, and over there, right? And then you have to run over there and over there. Which in which case I recommend like running a logistics floor underneath or on top, depending on how you build, that handles that priority system, and that also can run. So you have like a clean looking factory, and you just have like there's an input, there's an output, and it just goes down into the ground again or up, depending on what you're doing. Like I would move it up because I have the iron out mock up here. I would move the like or the finished ore up a floor and then move it over, and I would actually have a similar belt priority system that would like prioritize the first and then the second and then third and fourth, fifth and sixth, which means that like because there's two inputs, it's 780 times 2. So I would go, that's how much each of these can handle per minute, and as long as they are somewhat even, like the train comes in and picks up somewhat when it exactly when it gets filled, and that it doesn't get backed up and everything, then you know that you have the right amount of iron moving in, and you know what you can use in a different factory, whatever. And then second, and third, and fourth, and fifth, and sixth, and so on. So you have a belt priority after it's come out here, and you have a belt priority before it goes in here, is what I would suggest. And other than that, like the concept of having this makes it a lot easier because I can spend a ton of time just smashing down these blueprints. If I remember correctly, it's 3 blueprints per blueprint for refiners specifically, and then you can just like if it's vanilla vanilla blueprint designers, and you just smash down like 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12 for however much ore you want to be able to process, or rather in this case, because these decided how much you want to output is the max limit. So you would just basically check, hey, I want to be able to output, let's say, 15 full belts. Then you go 15 times 780 means that I need to be able to output 11,700 pure ingots. And to make that, you have a relationship between the two of them. So you have, it's going to be, let's see, 65 divided by 35. So you need 1.8 times that. So you're going to need something like, what was it? 15 times 780, 11,700. 11,700. I'm just mocking this up. I'm not using exact numbers. Times 1.8 means that you need to input 21,000 iron ore to max out that facility. That is a lot of iron. If you just smash down a factory, like with 15 times 12, how many would that be? 15 times 12, 180 machines. And 180 machines smash down, like they're not going to use all the power, right? They're going to have a max consumption, but that max consumption is not going to be used until you put in over 20,000 iron ore into the facility. And all you have to do now is you can completely skip iron processing in all your future factories. You just have to plug them up to a truck tractor, drone, or train system that moves them to where you need them to be. That's it. You don't have to think about iron anymore other than, hey, I need to set up a station that brings even more iron into the factory. That's the only thing that you need to worry about. Yeah, and of course, power consumption at max capacity is going to be pretty insane. If you put in 180 factories that uses, I can't even tell what it is now, but I think if I remember correctly, these use 30. So that would be 30 times 180. I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me. But that's 5,400 megawatts of energy that you just need to have dedicated in case you need to use the full capacity. So just keep an eye on that. Ultimately, you have a factory that doesn't need any like oversight, nothing. All you need to do is just keep a running tally of how much iron you're putting into the factory. That's it. And ultimately, you can do the same thing. Like take the iron. Like if you just move up one step from here, okay, how much iron plates do you want to have as a max capacity, right? If I go to iron plates, right? If I just take a normal recipe, like the standard recipe, you need to put in 30 iron ingots to make 20 in a normal constructor, right? So let's say that you put in 100 constructors. 100 constructors times 20. Like that's 2,000 iron plates in case you need it. Like you don't need to use all that, but like it might turn out that currently you are only like sending over enough to make 500 iron plates per minute. You don't need more. But you also don't need to care until you start hitting the max limit. And in this case, like what I could do here is just, hey, I could smash out another section here. I can expand in this direction and just keep adding like in perpetuity. Just, hey, I can have a iron processing facility that goes out to this distance. That's no problem. All I have to consider is power consumption and the logistics of moving my resources in and out, creating kind of like an ecosystem, which means that you can spend a lot more time making fancy train lines and working on late game stuff and working on like your assembly director systems and your plasma, like nuclear pasta, and you can like work on your nuclear power. Like you suddenly have an entirely different way of needing to prioritize in building your factories, where you don't have to actually think about building this. Like you don't need to have this in every factory. You don't need to go like, hey, am I actually making all the iron that I need? How much iron, how many refineries do I need to fit into my new factory to make the iron that I need for this factory? You don't need to think about that anymore. You literally just go like, hey, I need to go in and change the timetable for one of the trains. Like that's the extent of it, right? And then you can just like think like, okay, if I'm already dedicating this goes to one factory, this goes to one factory, okay, then make sure that if you're making a new train line, that these are just normal, like they are these filler ones, empty platforms, okay, rather than anything or an empty platform with catwalks. Like that's all you gotta do. Just make sure that if these are already taken up, like all the 1,500 and whatever, and all the 1,500 whatever is used for different factories. Okay, then you make sure that now this one is used for the next factory, and this one is used for the next factory, and so on and so forth, right? So ultimately, you will have no problem whatsoever scaling up your production to insane levels without having to constantly build the same processing all over again for every factory you build. And I would recommend, like, if you start a new save or you're early on in the game, I would recommend trying a setup like this, right? Because if you look here, let's look. I don't. Yeah, you can't tell because I have the like god power thingy on. But generally, if we take like this, I think they use 4 each, but 4 times there's 9, 18, 27, 36, I think. Yeah, 36. smelters. Sorry, word completely escaped me. 36 smelters times 4. Like, all you need to do is make. Oh, that's wrong. Is make sure that you have 144 megawatts of power ready. That's it. And you're set. And like, you and me both know, if you've played the game like at any point, like 1080 and like iron ingots out early on in the game, you're set up until you need to start producing steel. So if you go early and just unlock the Caterium, you're set. Like, go for it, 100%, right? Okay, either way, now let's see what happens when we crank this to the highest levels of performance, as in 270 on all belts. And let's see what happens. It's an experiment for me too. I don't know how is this gonna break this time, and I will get back to you when we've tried that out. There we go. Some additional adjustments, and now it works. Basically, some of the overflow wasn't overflowing the way it needed to overflow, because the priority systems here are funky at best. So basically, what's been done now is the priority system now moves over, and finally, if we look here, there is a constant flow out. Like, if I remove there, it's going out 270. We're looking over here, 270 is going out. If we look over here, if I remove that, 270 is constantly going out. I move over here, 270 is constantly going out. And if we look at the 4 belts over here, they are all full. This one might be not full. It might be some gap. I don't know. I haven't really checked yet. But let's look at this. You can see that it looks like every single slot on the belt is full constantly, no matter what happens over here, which is perfect. Like, even if you can see like stoppages here and there in the system, that is basically the point. That's why the overflow works. And just keep in mind, like I said before, that's you see here, like this one has literally just goes forward and goes right. There is no to the left when this gets, like, if this got backed up, or if this gets backed up, doesn't, like, you can't do that, because then you split this and you mess up the entire priority system. You can only use one overflow in your smart splitters when making the belt priority system. I encourage you to, if you know a good video that shows like belt priority system, left to right, right to left, doesn't matter, but if you know a really good video, I would love to see it, because this is basically me just making the biggest, ugliest, but it works kind of system that I could, to make sure that I showed you like the scaling up and scaling down properly. Could I have been making more experimentation with this before I showed you guys? Definitely. But this is way more fun, and you also get to see a part of the process of like troubleshooting and like solving problems. And if I were to rebuild this, yeah, it's probably not going to be as big or as bulky. Like, I can probably look at certain parts here and go like, okay, there's never any like overflow backing up or anything like that. But yeah, like as we see it right now, there is no stoppage, there is no blockage from any of the miners' outputs. And if we look over here, once this is full, I'm gonna fill it up just so we can look at it. Once this is full, it's gonna start the last one, and we should have a fully 100% efficient, maxed out smart factory running. Yep, there, obviously now this one started as well. You can see that it is evenly taking care of itself. There, it's not, why did it stop now? Okay. It's doing weird stuff because of the power, like, here as well. So this is not like fully representative of the mechanics of these factories or anything like that. But as you can see, there's coming in enough ore to run the whole thing at capacity, and we are getting 4 full belts that are never backing up, feeding this smart factory, and it's coming out like this, just feeding into our awesome sinks. But this could be going into trucks, drones, trains, tractors, like more likely tractors if you're using like the Mark III belts, and building smart factories like designed for Mark III belts. It's very likely that you are using tractors at this point. Belts could work if you're moving, like if you're using this to move to a different floor where you have a different kind of production that is also a smart factory. Perfectly fine. Works perfectly fine, right? I'm considering actually making like a smart factory only playthrough at the drop of 1.0. That's one of the play styles or like gimmicks, themes, if you want to call it that I am considering for the 1.0 release. And if you have any ideas for like how to use the smart factories for anything, go right ahead. I want to hear about them in the comments. Come over to the Discord, show what you got. If you want help, if you want the help to look like this in the end, it's perfectly fine. Come over and ask, and I will see what I can do to help you figure out your smart factories. And I hope that this inspired you to kind of try your own thing. This is like all of the things that you see here, aside from me flying, is entirely vanilla. So this is not modded or anything. You can do this. Like I'm using Mark III miners here just because, so that I don't have to go around finding even more iron nodes. I can just use these 4 to showcase this. Like I could have put in 10 like impure nodes with a Mark I miner, or like instead of doing this. But I decided to do this to show you guys. And if I were to now, and this is a fun thing, if I were to, this is the final part of the episode, and that is I'm going to switch these out to Mark I miners. Because this would be just at the junction where you got steel, but you haven't necessarily unlocked Mark IV belts that you need the encased industrial beams to build. Right, so there we go. Now they are all Mark Is. You can see they are struggling to get going. But the idea now is to see how the priority system adapts to there not being a full belts of ore anymore. And I'm guessing, based on how I've built this belt priority system, is we're gonna see ore only on this and potentially on this. Maybe. We will see. Because what we should see, I might need to put a, yeah, okay, I've missed one part here. So let's put in a smart splitter and a merger here. And this is now, no, overflow. And this is any there. So that I actually moved this ore as well to the right belt. Because that's what happens here. This moves over like so. That's not right. That doesn't, like, it's not supposed to do that. So then, like, this is also like a max capacity, minimum capacity. Like, what can I do here? So this comes in here. It merges stuff from there. If this overflows, it goes out here, goes here, that goes here. So this, where does that come from? Boom, 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 there. Okay, so here is where we need a splitter. I'm gonna put that splitter here. And I'm gonna put the merger here just to make it easy. And then I have overflow, any, and then it goes boom, like so. There. Now I have fixed the minimum capacity belt problems as well. Because before the problems was that when this overflowed to move stuff to the right, but then when I don't have overflow to move everything to the left becomes the problem. So that's because I haven't tested the minimum capacity, I haven't tested the maximum capacity. So that's also something to keep in mind as a final tidbit. Make sure you test your minimum and maximum capacities, like for your belt priority systems. Essentially, if you have one of these monstrosities, you did good. You did good. And if you can make it not a monstrosity that still functions, please teach. Or show me the video that taught you how to do it. Even better. So that I can also learn and show you guys more. The concept here wasn't the belt priority system, it was the smart factory. If I was making a video on this, that would not be a tips and tricks video. That would be a, hey, I'm learning now video. The tips and tricks video here is how do you make this system work? Or rather, how do you prioritize this, and in what use case scenarios do you have where these make sense? And like I said before, they make sense when you are moving massive amounts of resources. Like you can make it like this, but I actually don't think that it's necessarily relevant at this level of the game. I definitely think it starts getting relevant here at this level of the game. Or at least like when you unlock refineries levels of the game. Mark IV belts, refineries and everything unlocked so that you can make like heavy modular frames on the computers and all that kind of stuff. I definitely think that once you start being able to have like the inter-factory logistics with the train, trucks, tractors, and drones, this becomes a relevant thing because it means that you can remove this entire concept or this entire section in your planning of factories. All you have to keep a track of is how much of my capacity am I using. So yeah, as you can see now, everything is basically moved out and fixed to the leftmost belt. And what you can see is that the other factories are now running out of ore and shutting down and adjusting to the fact that they are not needed to process everything. It just stops here because that's how much ore we're putting in. Or yeah, well, it's going to fill this up probably. Yeah, as you can see, it's filling up faster than, so that's going to be used, and then probably here is the last one that's going to be in use. But yeah, this is the smart concept, or smart factory concept, blah blah blah. This is a smart factory concept that I wanted to show, and I challenge people to try this out. If you have built the same old boring factories 10 times already, try this out. See how it feels to create a blueprint that lets you make this, to completely have to negate having that in your planning of your factories. Because you're already doing it somewhere, right? That's what I want to see. It's a challenge for me to you guys. I'm really fascinated by the smart factory concept. We don't have logic in the game. This is the closest I think we can get right now. And I really, really hope that I can see your guys' ideas and opinions on the smart factory concept. You might not even want to call this a smart factory. You might just want to call it an adaptive factory. Whatever it is. I like it because it means I can use less of my brain to process iron and more of my brain to not die from trying to make the nuclear pasta. So yeah, let's see you guys in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, show up in the Discord and say hi, and share your ideas for smart factories. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good time. Bye!